Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Warner Brothers and the shocking new information that has been released by Variety, which could impact the future of DCTV and DC in general. So if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future DCTV videos later this year. So I'm sure many of you guys remember earlier this year we did a couple of videos on a DC show going to Netflix and a DC show going to Amazon, and at the time that was quite shocking, right? Because Warner Brothers was pretty much keeping most stuff in-house like most other studios, because over the lockdown streaming services became even bigger and everyone wanted to have content that would attract people to their streaming service. So we were pretty much seeing very little movement in regards to studios selling TV shows or any form of assets to competitors basically. And so if we skip forward to today, we have a report from Variety which we're going to be breaking down, as Warner Brothers is negotiating a $500 million deal to sell film and TV music publishing assets. Now yes, this is music publishing assets, but there is another report that we have to go over in regards to an HBO Max show potentially moving to Netflix. So let's break this down. So Warner Brothers Discovery is negotiating to sell around half of the storied Warner Studios film and TV music publishing assets for approximately $500 million. While it is unclear exactly which assets are on the table, one source says that the rights to slightly less than half of the catalogue, with a price of around $500 million, are likely to go to a major label, with Sony said to be in the lead. The catalogue is believed to be including music from such films as Purple Rain, Evita, Sweeney Todd, Rent, and several Batman films, and many more titles, as well as songs included in films such as Time Goes By from Casablanca, iconic titles to be sure. But again, it is unclear exactly which rights are in play. They go on to say, however, some observers cast a skeptical eye on the deal, saying that many of the company's assets are more than half a century old and are declining in value and difficult to exploit. They are said to consist largely of film themes and cues, with comparatively few conventional songs that would seem to have little familiarity or resonance in the present or the future. The catalogue is currently under a multi-year administration deal with Universal Music Publishing. So before we go on any further, let's go ahead and break this down. So basically what's happening is Warner Brothers Discovery, they are deep in debt. They're trying to make money back on what they have, and as this article rightly points out, most of the stuff that they're trying to sell here in terms of their music catalogue is very old. It's old cues, it's old themes from certain films that potentially Sony could use in the future if Sony was the one to buy it. I think it would be worth it at the end of the day, because it's not super expensive in terms of like the grand scheme of things, 500 million for a company like Sony Music. And so in the case of, you know, our DC TV shows, DC in general, how is this going to affect anything? Well, I think this just goes to show that Warner Brothers are in a sticky situation. They're trying to get out of it, and they're willing to do a lot of things, including selling the rights to certain parts of their catalog, including the themes from several Batman films. It's stated in this article, and I'm sure they might sell the theme to Superman or, you know, any kind of popular theme that could be of potential benefit for whoever holds the rights to these. Obviously they can come up with some non-exclusive deal so they can continue to use the music whilst also selling it, basically giving permission to someone like Sony if they want to ever use any of the tracks that they are being given. And so yeah, this is a pretty big deal, and the price of 500 million, as I said, isn't too crazy, and I think someone is going to try and sweep in and get some of these iconic soundtracks and themes and cues and different things like that. However, as it says in the article, people are skeptical that they're gonna actually stick to this price point because a lot of the assets are very old and declining in value. And so Warner Brothers are clearly just looking around and they're like, okay, what can we sell? Yeah, we could sell like some of these old themes and these cues, and potentially we could get like a decent price point for it. 500 million would be nice. And so I think overall this wouldn't affect them hugely. Obviously, if this were the case of them actually selling the rights to specific characters like Batman, oh, Netflix, you can do a Batman show, or oh, Amazon, you can do a Superman show, that would be huge. Obviously that price point would be very, very high, and that would allow, you know, different competitors to use their characters in different ways, and that's something that they're probably thinking about. We've seen in the past, Marvel used to basically rent characters, and they would have access to certain characters that they didn't fully own until more recently, and that was a lucrative way of different companies making money off of, say, a certain studio wanting to produce certain content. And so if someone like Netflix was interested in making a Batman show or a Superman show, Warner Brothers would definitely think about selling the rights for a specific project. And you know, these studios or streaming services would definitely have to pay a big sum of money, but it might be worth it for them at the end of the day. And so I think they're just, as I said, looking for ways to make money, and this is just a big way of them making, you know, $500 million or something around that ballpark. And we'll get into the TV side of things in just a second, so stick around, but let's continue with this report. So the windfall from such a sale, coming at the top of a still booming market for music catalogs, would help the company to pay down a $49.5 billion debt that they have. That is a huge amount of debt. And obviously 500 million is not going to do much in the grand scheme of 49.5 billion. I mean, that's not even 1 billion. Obviously it's half, but yeah, they got a long way to go, and I don't know how they plan on getting out $49.5 billion in debt, but that's the thing for Warner Brothers to discuss among themselves and figure out. Also, I should mention, companies like Netflix, they're all in debt. Like, they're all in huge amounts of debt. It's not just Warner Brothers, so they're just operating in a different way to other studios and streaming services where they're actively trying to get out of this debt by selling some of their content. And so the report also comes amid a drastically changing environment for the television business as a whole. Domestic cable channels were once the envy of the industry in terms of viewership and profitability, but the fast-changing pay TV marketplace and the rise of on-demand streaming has upended the reliable cable TV earnings power that made the former Time Warner a dynamo in the 1990s and early 2000s with HBO and their different networks, of course. And so yeah, it's a tricky situation right now, but Warner Brothers is trying to dig themselves out of the hole since Discovery took over Warner Brothers and it became Warner Brothers Discovery. So for now, let's go ahead and move on to the next article. This is coming from Deadline. Again, the link will be in the description below. And so this is titled Streaming Shocker, Warner Bros. Discovery in talks to license HBO original series to Netflix. So this is what I was talking about at the start of this video, that this is absolutely huge because Warner Bros. Are considering licensing the rights to another series to another streaming service rival. So the article goes like this: in a hugely surprising move, Deadline understands that Warner Bros. Discovery is shopping some of its HBO library titles to rival Netflix. Such a deal would mark the first time in nearly a decade that HBO shows would exist on a rival SVOD service in the US at the same time as being on HBO. And so the first title that Deadline understands is set to be a part of the arrangement is Insecure, the HBO series which ran for 5 seasons on HBO and finished in December 2021. We hear that other titles are being discussed. According to sources, this is a financial move once again. We hear HBO veterans push back against the plan, but corporate financial consideration won out. Insiders stress the deal is not closed and may still fall apart. It marks a major strategy shift across the premium pay landscape. The shows are understood to be distributed on a non-exclusive basis, which would allow them to stream on Max whilst also being over on Netflix as well. So David Zaslav signaled early in his tenure that he is open to forego exclusivity and licensed content to boost the bottom line. Earlier this year, Warner Bros. Discovery moved to distribute titles such as Westworld to free streaming services like Roku and Tubi. Insecure itself got a run on their own cable network OWN earlier this year, which is surprising and a rare move for an HBO series to get a run on basic cable. In 2014, HBO struck a deal with Amazon Prime Video to license series such as The Sopranos, Deadwood, 6 Feet Under, and The Wire. This new move would be a first in the streaming era, particularly given the increased vertical integration of all the major Hollywood studios. They go on to say that the most surprising facet of the deal is that Warner Brothers would allow some of its premium programming to live on arguably its biggest rival, likely raising eyebrows across the industry. We've come a long way since then. Time Warner boss Jeff Bewkes compared Netflix to the Albanian army in 2010. On the other hand, there is hope that putting HBO shows on Netflix will give them additional exposure, reaching new global audience. So that is the report in full. Let's break down what this could mean. So obviously this is a huge deal. HBO letting Netflix stream shows at the same time. Now, you know, this is kind of different from normal because normally it's all about exclusivity. So, you know, back when The Flash and all the other Arrowverse shows had a Netflix deal, that was an exclusive deal. So that was, the shows would air on the CW, they finish, and then they would go straight over to Netflix after the season was done, and you would be able to stream the whole season. That deal came to an end, and obviously that's a big reason behind the CW being not very profitable. But the CW is in a different circumstance than Warner Brothers' own streaming service, HBO. However, it seems things are definitely not very good right now, and so they're just trying to make extra money, as I said earlier, with the music deal. And so with this, they are potentially giving away their content that is already finished and already done, and it would be able to stream on both networks. I think it would actually be a good move for HBO. I think Warner Brothers is going to make some money on this. And definitely streaming services like Netflix would love to get access to some of their biggest content. Obviously for Netflix, it's not really as good as if they got like exclusive rights to show a specific show. However, I will say it's probably a little bit cheaper for Netflix to license the show if it's not exclusive. So I think things will work out in both avenues. But what could this mean for DCTV? This is what you've been waiting for, and I'm sorry you've had to wait a while, but let's get into it. So, as you guys know, there is a bunch of shows that are Arrowverse shows and they were all cancelled. There's also DC shows that were cancelled on HBO Max, like Titans, Doom Patrol and everything like that. And so we've been wondering for a while, will any of these shows be revived and picked up by another service? Well, originally we were like, probably not. If a show is going to be saved and it's a Warner Brothers show, it's probably going to be Max. However, if a show is cancelled on Max, like Titans or Doom Patrol, they're definitely not going to get revived by their own streaming service that cancelled them. And so obviously we're all thinking, okay, how can Gotham Knights continue? How can Batwoman, Legends of Tomorrow, or any of the shows that are currently cancelled and trying to find a new home, will they find a new home? Well, with all of these deals going on, and yes, they are shows that are not currently running, but that's the same with the cancelled shows. Those shows are technically finished. If they can strike a deal by, say, giving the rights to stream Batwoman or Legends of Tomorrow to Netflix, or something like Titans, you could share it to Netflix, you could definitely get more exposure. And if it does really well, a streaming service like Netflix would totally be down to maybe negotiate with Warner Brothers or the CW or whoever holds the rights to the specific shows to potentially revive those shows. So we've seen that before, like they saved Lucifer, they did a couple seasons of Lucifer, obviously that is a DC character. And as I said recently, Greg Berlanti's new show that he's developing, which is a DC show titled Dead Boy Detectives, which is basically a Sandman spin-off, even though it's not necessarily linked to Netflix's Sandman. That was picked up by Netflix, and that is a new show coming there, that is DC. And as I said before, Amazon Prime Video picked up and saved Batman the Caped Crusader. So definitely right now things are leaning more towards this could potentially happen. And obviously I don't want to give those of you who are really hoping for these specific shows that aren't on anymore to come back too much hope. But I have to say, right now, things are looking pretty decent. Obviously, it's bad news for Warner Brothers, but they need to sell a bunch of their content, and I don't really see the downside of giving someone like Netflix the rights to continue a show like Batwoman, Gotham Knights, Legends of Tomorrow, or Titans, or anything if they want to continue with it, because they're already cancelled. Like, they chose to cancel them for a reason, mainly money reasons, and so wouldn't it be lucrative to basically lend out the characters in those specific shows, which Netflix or whoever the streaming service would be paying for, because otherwise these cancelled shows, you're making no money on them, like nothing at all. So why not lend them out? And I'm not saying sell all your rights to Netflix or Amazon or any other streaming service. Like, I don't want them to sell the character rights. I want Warner Brothers to keep that, because they are Warner Brothers characters, they are DC characters at the end of the day. But I would like to see them being open to letting other networks create content, and I think at the end of the day, as it was said earlier, this is only going to get more eyes on it, and it's going to be making them money, so what's the big deal? But for now, thank you guys so much for watching. That pretty much does it for this video. What do you guys think about all of this? From the 2 articles I've read out, it definitely seems like they're leaning more towards that. We could definitely see certain DCTV shows or Warner Brothers shows from HBO be picked up by other networks or streaming services if a good deal was proposed. But yeah, for now, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment. It really helps out the channel. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. And you can click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.
I see red.